Hello to the 1E9 community. My name is Jonathon Keats, and I am an experimental philosopher and artist, and I am speaking to you from San Francisco. As humans, we have made a mess of our planet. We are currently in a time of anthropogenic climate change. We have multiple threats, both as a result of climate change and more broadly as a result of our overreach, that we're not really confronting. And we're certainly not addressing in a way that seems to be bringing us to a future that is sustainable or humane. I believe that we need to look beyond the planet that we live on and to look at ourselves from a vantage that is extraterrestrial, in a manner of speaking, in order to be able to reset our assumptions. This becomes even more the case when we start to think about what it would mean to make contact with another civilization elsewhere in the universe, whether by getting off planet or by listening or attempting to speak with other civilizations elsewhere in the universe. Back in 1950, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Enrico Fermi was having lunch with a few other scientists. And the story goes that they were talking about how the universe must be teeming with intelligent life. And Fermi, after some conversation, asked a question, a very simple one. Where is everybody? What he meant by that question was, if intelligence is commonplace in the universe, why have we not heard from intelligent life elsewhere? And this great silence, as it sometimes is called, has been one of the conundra that has driven SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, as a branch of science, but also has been one of the great existential questions of our time. And has become particularly poignant and pertinent as the hypothesis that we have not heard from any other life form elsewhere in the universe has been advanced, that in fact there is a great filter. The great filter claims that there is a certain level of complexity where that complexity may be self-defeating, and that is, in fact, a reason why we have not heard from life elsewhere in the universe. Effectively, that when life gets to the stage that it might be able to communicate across the vast distance of space, other processes come into play that lead to its demise. And we are, as a civilization, right now on the verge of being able to communicate across vast distances in space. As a society, as a civilization, we are on the verge of being the intelligent life that we are looking for elsewhere in the universe. And we also are looking at existential threats here on Earth. Climate change being one of the most prominent. It seems to me that it would be a good idea for us to start to address that in whatever ways we can. And one way in which to do so, I believe, is to build a library. A library that will provide the opportunity for exchange with other civilizations elsewhere in the universe of what we know of our own problems, as well as how we have surmounted problems in the past that can be shared with other civilizations where they may have addressed and solved problems that we still face, and vice versa. I don't know whether there are intelligent beings elsewhere in the universe. I don't know whether they will ever come across us or vice versa. I don't know whether they're interested. But I do believe that the process of building a library as a society can be a process of introspection. And through this process, I believe we can find patterns that may be significant. It may be the case, in fact, I believe that it is the case, that there are underlying qualities that are evolutionary perhaps in terms of how these qualities came about for us, that lead to existential threats that may seem quite different from each other. That the threat of runaway artificial intelligence, that the threat of nanotechnology that gets out of control in the form of gray goo, that the threat of a pandemic that is caused by some sort of genetic engineering experiment, that the threat of anthropogenic climate change, that all of these may be as a result of phenomena such as overreach, that we may, as a species, really need to confront overreach in order to be able to confront any and all of these. I think that it's really important to look historically at the greatest attempts to communicate with being elsewhere in the universe and the motivations for them. And the greatest example of all is the Golden Record. There are two of these that were launched on the Voyager spacecraft. And this was a project that was led by Carl Sagan, who recognized that the chances of any extraterrestrial life form ever intercepting these spacecraft was infinitesimally small, but that the process of creating these records and of putting what he believed to be representative of human culture onto these records, that this would be an act that could bring us together as a civilization because all of us would be aware of it. And I think that the Interstellar Lending Library is built in that spirit. The library, as I see it, is meant to be, and I hope that it will become, an enduring monument in the sense that it will be placed somewhere on our planet that is remote and stable, where it will last for a very long time. One of the great challenges of building an interstellar lending library is extending an invitation, is in one way or another communicating some sort of welcomeness in the first place. And I have a little bit of experience with that because of a project that I undertook several years ago with Alice Gorman, who is an archaeologist specialized in space archaeology based at Flinders University. And what we worked on was a technology that I think we desperately need. So the project began with this question that I'm asking right now at perhaps a deeper level with the Interstellar Lending Library, which was, where is everybody? And in thinking about why nobody has visited us, no aliens have come here, I started to realize that aliens who are in our own midst, I'm in San Francisco, so in the US, aliens who are south of the border. In the case of Europe, there are abundant examples as well of borders that are built and that are reinforced, of a tendency toward xenophobia, of hatred. I realized that these were not exactly welcoming tendencies, and perhaps the reason why nobody was visiting us was because we were not a very welcoming people. So I started to think about what might be a means by which to counteract the xenophobia, the intolerance in our midst. And I realized that there actually is already a very good technology. It's the welcome mat. And so what Alice and I proposed for the International Astronautical Congress a few years ago was to create a cosmic welcome mat, a welcome mat that would extend welcome to any being anywhere in the universe. And the welcome mat ideally serves a dual purpose. One purpose is to extend a welcome to beings from elsewhere in the universe in the interest of cosmic exchange. But another is to address the xenophobia here on our own planet. I have also been very interested in ways in which we might interact with beings elsewhere in the universe. It is a big challenge because of the fact that we have no idea what language they speak, how they communicate more broadly, what form they have, what means they have to process information or to sense their environment. So I have been looking at music. We think of music as being universal here on Earth, so why not elsewhere? It tends to be, when we talk about something that is universal on Earth, the first thing that comes to mind. Maybe there's a reason for that. As a way in which to begin the process of promoting exchange with beings elsewhere in the universe, it seems that music might be as good a guess as any. So I've been developing instruments that are meant for jam sessions with beings everywhere and anywhere throughout the universe, that don't make assumptions that are based on us as humans or even life on Earth. So, for instance, I've developed instruments that, instead of using sound waves, that they actuate gravitational waves. We can't sense gravitational waves, but it might be that beings elsewhere in the universe are able to sense those and not able to sense sound waves. So this process of building these instruments is a way in which to reach out, but it also ideally is a way in which to then come back around to our own miscommunication with one another and our own need to find ways in which to come together. The Interstellar Lending Library is a space in which to come together. And like any library, I hope there will be many activities there that will not only be research-based. I hope that there will be an opportunity for people to come together. Libraries are community centers. They are places where people come together not only to research, but also to have dialogues. And I think that the Interstellar Lending Library needs to be built in that spirit for beings from throughout the universe, but also initially for beings living on this planet. So having jam sessions seems to me only natural as one of the activities that might take place in this library. Having a cosmic welcome mat might be a first step toward having the signal that is needed to get some sort of interstellar collaboration on the exchange of knowledge and information about existential threats. The Interstellar Lending Library, the Cosmic Welcome Mat, Intergalactic Omniphonics, all of these are examples of the sorts of thought experiment that I undertake. And I don't claim that they're any good, but it's a starting point for the sorts of thought experiments that I think we all might undertake. I think that experimental philosophy is a career that everyone should have, at least as a part-time profession, because we need many more experimental philosophers. We need many more thought experiments. We need many more lending libraries and many more instruments that are able to perform in many other ways. It's all an open-ended exploration. And I think that to the 1E9 community, the parting thought that I would have is, as a vision for the future of humanity, is that the future of humanity really depends on being able to think together about the big questions, and being able to do so through some sort of common space that we can create, or through provocations that can reach all of us and that we can use together to be able to grapple with the world in which we live and envision the world that we want in the future.